Yeah, probably.
Oh boy.
We may as well do it before,
Makes 3.
you wanna do it before the break, right?
Can I
You can
check?
do it Thursday morning.
Thursday morning?
Sure.
Oh, I'm not here this week, then we have an entire week off.
How does everyone do Friday?
Tomorrow is Wednesday.
Yeah, don't say tomorrow. We have we have bio and.
We have a calc test tomorrow. I have Steve absence.
Okay, we're on 4-3, 11s. Okay, 12, quiet now, please. All right. When we work through this, there's 3 or 4 methods in which we can solve a quadratic function. The first is dropping, the second is the factor, okay? So those are your first 2 that you want to go to, because those are the 2 easiest ones to do. The third is solving it like just a normal equation in which you isolate x. So for example, I have x squared equals 36. How do I get x by itself? Square root. So what is my solution? Plus minus 6. Okay? We have to remember that when you take the square root, that -6 squared and 6 squared both give you 36. Now that's important to us. I'm going to show you another reason why. What do I have here? If I write it like that, what do I have there? Very similar, right? Obviously, I just moved the 36 over, but if I told you to factor this, how are you going to factor it? No. Yes. You have to notice that and recognize it. That is difference of squares, and a perfect square with a subtract sign, and another perfect square. So that is actually x minus 6, x plus 6 equals 0. Therefore, x is equal to 6 and -6. So we have to understand that when you're doing this, that there are 2 values when you take a square root that end up giving you the same value you started with. Okay? So the next question is this. So we go x minus 4 squared equals 64. Okay? I've got to solve for my x here. First thing I want to do then, once I have the x isolated on one side, is square root both sides. So I get x minus 4 equals plus minus 8. So I go x is equal to 8 plus 4, and x is equal to -8 plus 4. So x then is equal to 12 and -4 here. Now feel free to check your answer. What's 12 in for x here? What's 12 subtract 4? What's 8 squared? Good. -4. -4 subtract 4. -8. -8 squared? 64. Okay? So that's the first of this. So the fourth method. So this is the second, this is the third method. The first is, of course, graphing. The second is factoring. The third is that method in which you isolate your x and solve for it. The fourth method is to use the completing the square method and then go back to this guy. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this, but it does work. All right? So let's take, for example, on page 166. Now, you're going to need to know all 4 methods. You're going to get it in which I will ask you specifically to do each of the 4 methods. Okay? So, in fact, I may even get an assignment for you tomorrow that will just be, can you do all 4 methods to solve this? Okay, so completing the square. Now, there is a catch on completing the square, doing it this way than what we have done in the past. So I'm going to do it the same way we have done it before, and then we will, it's a little bit more work, but at least it's consistent with what you've already done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just focus on this side right here, on the left side. So the negative 32 is just gonna stay as is for a second. So the first step in completing the square is place the brackets. Then I factor out an A. Is there an A value there? What's the A value? 1. So I don't have to do that. So now I place my blanks. This,
Is it different than normal placing blanks?
that's what I said, I'm keeping it consistent. It's exactly the same. Okay? What goes in the blank? 9 squared. Like that. Okay? Square root of that. That side. Square root of that. All squared. Now what do you suppose I do with the negative 81? Add it over to negative 32, right? Because it's a subtract here, so I'm going to add it to this side. So what's 81 subtract 32?
49.
49.
I have a question. Before when we were doing these questions, you told me to always add the other part. Like the 81.
I've never ever told you that once in my life.
You said to subtract it.
Always subtract. Add in the bracket, subtract the outside.
But we always have.
Just leave it for a second. Okay? Alright, so now what? What did we just learn today?
Other methods.
Which is what? What are we going to do right here? Nope, we've already done that. Square root. So I take the square root of this, 8 plus 9, plus minus 7, right? A is equal to, so 7 subtract 9, negative 7 subtract 9. A equals, so this is what we just did today already. Square root, square root. But you have to get it to that point by completing the square first. Okay, it's not it's not a favorite method of mine, but it is one that they do ask that you do. Now I'm not certain that we need it past grade 11. I'm pretty sure we don't. So I'd focus more on your factoring and your graphing. But you do need to know this. Okay? Questions?
How did you get the 2 and 16?
7 subtract 9 and negative 7 subtract 9. Alright? There is one more method, but you've already done it. That's the quadratic formula. But we'll leave that. We'll leave that for now. I think what we're going to end up doing is doing an assignment before the break. Come back to this, review it after the break, and test after the break. Is what I think we'll do. Because there's just too much here that there's so much information in this. You need to know. Yeah. Right. I'll have to send it tomorrow. Okay, any other questions? All right. You need to be done to the end of 4-3 today. So if you're not, take it home tonight. I don't give you homework very often, so be sure it gets done. You don't have to run out of time here. All right, any questions from 4-2, 4-3?